Welcome to 40 TV with your host 4O. What's up, y'all? Today I put together a tutorial on how to change or turn a kick into a bass. Kind of like they do in Swedish House Mafia's The One. So let's get started. Right here I've got, in the first track, I've got a drum set loop going on. I'll audition that real quick. I'll go ahead and stop that. What we're shooting for here is actually right here under the kick bass line. I'm going to play this with the drum set and then show you how we got to that point. So let me play it real quick. So pretty cool. I'm also going to play the drums with a modified bass line using the same loop and a similar technique, and then I'll show you how to do that as well. So here we go. Alright, so let's keep it going. Right over here where I have original sounds, this is what we're starting with. I have right here on this track called Kick Bass, I have a sampler loaded. In that sampler I have a kick sample loaded. It sounds like so. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in onto the sample, left click with your mouse showing the magnifying glass. We're going to move over here to the beginning of the sample. We're going to change the loop start and end. Maybe somewhere what we're trying to do is get one cycle of the loop. So maybe something like right here. Doesn't matter which, let's see. It'd be probably faster if I zoom out. If I zoom out, I can drag the loop end in, and I can zoom back in. And to zoom, I'm just left clicking within this region here that shows the sample. And again, what I'm looking for is one cycle. You can play with it to get it. It doesn't have to be exact. It could be 2 cycles, but really what it sounds like right now is like so. I also switch the sustain mode right here to both forward as well as reverse. So when I click and hold a note, now, right now we're hearing the beginning of the sample, so let's change the sample start time to the same as the loop end time. So I can double click here, type 735, press enter, and I'll do the same with the sample end. I'll change that to 961. You see I'm getting those numbers from over here. Obviously your numbers will be different depending on what loop you're using and how big of a region you selected. Now when I audition this loop, it sounds like so. You notice it's playing this forward and then reverse because I have the sustain mode right here set to forward and reverse, basically changing both the loop start, the loop end, and then matching the sample start and sample end to basically one cycle of this sine wave from this kick. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab an overdrive effect which ships with Ableton. In this overdrive effect, you can go ahead and play with the different settings, but on top you have an EQ. You can affect, basically, overdrive is, it's going to distort your sound. So, and basically overdrive whatever frequencies you set. So upon playing with this, I think I came up with something like 12K, something to that effect, with a 7.5 Q or thereabouts. By adjusting these settings, it will change how the sound sounds. Let's hear it now. So now it sounds, it's like it's definitely driving that just a little bit more. I think the drive's a little bit too high. Let's drop it down to maybe 25, increase the tone. Dynamics, we're going to leave at 50. This is how much of the compression is being applied and the resulting dynamic range is being left from the original sound. And in the dry wet, let's bring this up to maybe 60. So now our current sound sounds like so. Sounds alright, but we got a little ways to go. Let's throw on a saturator. And in the saturator, we're just going to affect a couple settings. We're going to bring up the drive. This is increasing the input going into the saturator, which is also basically distorting the sound as it comes in. I think, I don't know, 13 dB, something to that effect. Then go ahead and turn on the DC offset as well as the color, because we want to colorize the sound. And I think I went with something like, I don't know, 8, 9, somewhere is the bass setting. You change the sound like so. So that's with, without. So you can see it's driving the sound a little bit, and then saturating it just a tad. Come back over to here to plugins. You guys may not have this plugin, but what I'm looking for is PSP Vintage Warmer. And I'm going to bring Vintage Warmer in, and I'm going to start with a preset and modify the preset. The preset's off the side of the screen, but it's the Bassline track preset. I think what I'm going to do, excuse me, is I'm going to lower this the drive on the low amount to, I don't know, 3.14, something to that effect. The drive for the whole thing maybe down to, I don't know, 9.3, 9.2, something. Also, for as far as which frequencies we're affecting, it's about where I want it. I don't know, 130, 140. And then on the high end, maybe drop this down a little bit to 3.5. We're going to increase or adjust the high levels so that it's maybe driving it just a little bit. Something like 1.7 is probably fine. So now let's hear what this has done to our sounds. So again, this is with this, that was without, that was with, right? We can then go ahead and add maybe some vinyl distortion. Vinyl distortion can emulate some crackle. As you can hear as I turn this up, it's making the crackle sound that vinyl would make. I'm going to turn off record enable for a second so I can adjust these settings, turning up some crackle. If I turn it up while I'm playing the tutorial, actually I'll have to disable it because it will keep playing. But I don't know, what I did is I added a little bit crackle to give it some vinyl feel. I also turned on the tracing module and increased it to 0.14 in the top module. I then adjusted this maybe to 10 kilohertz and with a 1.5 Q. And you're going to hear before and after. I changed the pinch to hard. I adjusted the bottom to 0.09 and switched this to maybe 6K or thereabouts. Doesn't have to be exact. With a 3Q. I dropped the density and I left the drive up, and so this is what it sounds like. Obviously the sound is really getting driven, right? So let's copy this sound over real quick, or the MIDI data over. I'll go ahead and left click, hold option, click and drag. It copied over that note information. If I double click here, we can see these are the notes for that sample. I'll go ahead and audition this, turning off the record enable, and it sounds like so. Let's add the drums to it. So, quick note, adjusting a lot of these settings can change the sound. You can also try by moving this to a different portion of the waveform. For example, maybe if we want to include 2 cycles of this waveform, we'll go ahead and change the sample start to match. And let's see if that adjusts the sound just a little bit maybe. Notice it made it deeper. Now what if we switched it to a half cycle? So somewhere like so. We'll match the sample start and it'll sound like so, etc. Obviously, when we're making these adjustments to a sampler, you'd probably want to adjust your overdrive, your saturator, and some of these things are optional. You don't necessarily need the vinyl distortion. You don't necessarily need the PSP Vintage Warmer, etc., etc. Feel free to play with this stuff. The only way you get to learn it is definitely by playing and experimenting. But so that's how we actually achieve this particular sound from turning a kick basically into a bass. So one more thing I wanted to show you, I'm going to go ahead and stop all the clips, is I'm going to play this mod bass right here and then show you how I came up with that. So this mod bass starting sound sounded like so. And then when you introduce both the mod bass with the drums, so pretty cool. Let me show you what I did. First things first, I'm going to copy this note data. Remember, this is the same pattern that's used in the Swedish House Mafia, the one. I'm going to go ahead and press Option, left click, and drag the MIDI note data over here to regular bass. If we switch back over, one of the things that we'll notice, this is just that sample loaded into sampler, right? The first thing that I did is I changed the sustain mode again to left and right. I changed my loop start and stop to include 3 cycles of the loop. Doesn't have to be perfect, right? But we'll go ahead and zoom in after I drag some of these, the sample start and end times in as well. And when I set this up, like I said, I did something like 3 samples. So I'm looking for the beginning as well as the ending for the cycles to match. You also want to make sure that your start time matches your loop start. So now this is matched up. The ending is matched up. It should sound like so. What it's doing is playing both forward and reverse for those 3 cycles of the particular sound. Next thing I did is I went over into the modulation. I turned on LFO1. In LFO1, if you're not already on a square wave, I switch from a sine to a square. Switching to a square is going to give us that stutter effect. The frequency is going to determine how many cycles per second that this LFO is affecting your original sample. I think I actually had it at 8 Hertz. I made sure that it was affecting 100% of the volume. You could also have this LFO affect your pan as well as your pitch, but I did it so it just affected the volume. Pitch rarely ever sounds good. In fact, I don't think I can remember an instance where it sounded good. Pan didn't sound so good for this particular sound, but feel free to experiment. So now this is what it sounds like right now. Let me stop all clips. We're on the regular bass. Record enable this arm so we can hear this particular MIDI instrument. So you can hear that stutter that's happening is because of the LFO. If I turn the LFO off, notice that there's no stutter. Turn the LFO on. Also, if I drag and change the frequency, you can see how this will affect your sound, as well as it can be automated within your track. So let me go ahead and play it so you can hear. Right, so pretty interesting, right? Oops, again, that was at 8 Hertz. The other thing that I did for this particular sound is I went and grabbed a compressor. I dropped it after the sampler. I then opened up the sidechain, which is this arrow right here. When you open up the sidechain, you can enable it. Then I can say audio from. I selected drum kit, which is one of the tracks in this group track, which is actually a loop. Because it's a loop, I turned on the EQ so that I can affect the low end. I turned on a low pass filter. I changed the frequency, I don't know, something so that the kick is really the majority of the sound that's coming through the EQ to affect the sidechain. I left the Q where it was at, and then adjusted the threshold, maybe setting the ratio to 3. The lower you drop the threshold, the more it will sound like a gated effect if you turn it down too low. So you're going to watch the gain reduction. All you're trying to do is it gets a little extra groove into this particular bass line. It's not going to be too much because the notes are not sustained for long periods of time. But let's play it and then make adjustments. Again, the MIDI notes were copied over, so I'll go ahead and press play. I'm going to have to play the drum track as well, so it can send information to the sidechain. I did mute the drum track by unchecking its active state right here. So when I play it, you're not hearing the drum track, but notice it's giving information to the compressor, right? And as you make changes to the threshold, we should be able to hear it within the bassline. So I'll go ahead and press play on the bassline. And just to further exaggerate it, I'm going to drag it lower so you can hear the effects seriously. Obviously, you wouldn't do anything like that. You're just looking for maybe 6 dBs of gain reduction. It's going to give a little bit extra groove to your track. Feel free to add other things too. I mean, obviously, we can come back here. We've already added quite a few, even if we turn on the vinyl distortion. Let's increase or let's change where this loops happen so it's a full cycle. Let's go 737, something to that effect. And then I'll come over here to the end. We can even add a reverb, for example, to the end of our chain here. Maybe turn down the decay time. Let's turn the wet all the way up so we can hear what it sounds like. Let's make sure we have the right sound playing. So you can hear right here with the decay time. We can also change the size of the room. We can change the quality of the reverb. I'll probably do another tutorial on reverb at another time, but we can turn off the spin, the high cut, make sure the quality is on high, change the size of the room a little bit, turn down the decay time, switch this back to maybe 52% or something like that, and sounds like so. So that's with, this is without. And with again. So thanks again for tuning in to another tutorial from 40 at 40 TV. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Please comment, rate, subscribe.